Hello everyone, it's Shel C from PaperOcotilloStudio, and today I'm sharing with you my May animal portrait. Since January of 2019, I've been making an animal portrait each month, and this is the one for May. They usually happen around the end of the month, and this is getting to be the end of the month. So, yeah. I was reading an article about different types of cats that live in Arizona. I think I've told the story before where we have had cats living on the roof next door to us, on the roof of the lady's house who's terrified of cats, and we've had to rescue a baby one before and take it to the animal rescue. And I believe those are bobcats, and they are not frightened of us. They will just, they're not aggressive either. They just will be in the pool and they'll just like hop onto the fence and climb up the tree and get up on top of her house, and we don't tell her about it. So this article was talking about the ocelot, which is a small cat that genesis from the leopard at some point. It looks kind of like a little leopard, and I was looking at the pictures and I thought, what an adorable little cat. Probably not very friendly, but they live in the mountains here in Arizona. There's some of them, and they had caught some on those cameras that they put out in the wild, and they just let them run and let animals come up to them, and um, they caught some footage of these Arizona ocelots. It's not an endangered species. There is 40,000 of them around in the United States in different areas, but still an interesting cat. I decided that that's what I would make for my animal today. I also wanted to play with my new Stencil Club stencils from StencilGirl. And the club is where you sign up monthly, you pay $25 a month, and you get three stencils, a 9 by 12, 6 by 6, and a 4 by 4, usually that coordinate with each other. And these ones were designed that they are letters, but it's script letters, and it's very abstract, so you can't really see that they're letters. They just make an interesting pattern. And I wanted to try them out. I was trying to make kind of a gray, muted background for my portrait. So, excuse me. So I used distress sprays. You know, the distress inks and distress sprays have that oxidizer in them. This is the distress oxide spray. Sorry, I should clarify. So when you put water on it, it does their oxidizing thing, which it brings up some type of a chalky white surface that makes it look muted. And so I used four colors. I started out with amber, and then I switched to vintage photo. I used iced spruce, which to me is almost a gray. And then I also used peeled paint, which is kind of an olive green. And the combination of all those did make a muted gray background. Then I wanted to kind of highlight a little bit, a couple areas, and so I used some titanium, unbleached titanium, and some Payne's Gray paints, acrylic paints, and used the stencils to go over the top with those colors, and I thought it made a really interesting background. The portrait ended up taking up a lot of the space, so it kind of was maybe a little bit of wasted time, but I like the background. I think it's cool, and it is very subtle pattern, but just an interesting pattern. So it also filled up all that white paper and gave me a nice finished background to work on. So then I'm using a graphite pencil. This happens to be a Stabilo All graphite pencil, which is water reactive, but I'm not going to use it with water. What I'm going to be using is stick pastels, and this set of pastels was sent to me by Vicky from Messy Table Studio. She didn't want them, she wasn't using them, and so she decided to send them on to me. So I decided to give them a try on this portrait. They are not soft pastels, I don't think. I'm not sure. They're in a stick. with no paper or anything on them. Definitely not oil pastel. It could be qualified as soft pastel, I'm not sure. But anyway, I wanted to draw my animal first and then go over it with the pastels. I actually should have just drawn it with the pastels, but I don't know. I tend to draw things in pencil before I color them. That's just what I do. But I did end up with kind of the pencil kind of scratched the finish of the stuff that was on there and made kind of some little valleys, and then the pastel was, as I was going over the top of it, it was just filling up the top and not going down into those valleys in some places, so I had to press down harder to get the powdery stuff down into them, but it wasn't that big of a deal. After I looked at this, I decided that this cat's face should have been much more smushed up, and I should have made the muzzle up higher. I just kept fussing with it, and I couldn't figure out what I didn't like about it. But this is an art journal. This is where I'm practicing. This isn't going to go in a museum or something or be sold. It's for me. It's for me to play around and mess around with a new product, these soft pastels, and to practice drawing. And so, it is what it is. I was looking at a picture, and what I finally figured out, and this is a duh moment here, right? Duh. I should know this. But I figured out the reason that people use easels and have their substrate up so that they can look at it directly, because I really have discovered that everything that I do, whether it's a face or whether it's an animal portrait or whatever type of thing, when I'm trying to get the proportions correct, when I'm looking at a photo and I'm trying to get the proportions correct, because of the angle of the paper being laid on the table so that I can film it from above, everything becomes elongated. So my stuff always, their faces are too long, and that's exactly what happened in this case, is that the way I see it sitting and drawing, and the way that it is, the perception is off. And so I should be using an easel, but if I was using an easel, then I wouldn't be able to film. So it's one of those things, is like I should tilt up my paper every once in a while and make sure that I'm not making something that's elongated. But oh well, it's still, you can still tell what it is. You can still tell what it's supposed to be. But I do wish that the muzzle was up further, that it was pushed up further. If I could just take that cat's face and push it in a little bit, I would be much more happy. But that's how art works. It doesn't come out exactly the way you want it every time. And that's the reason that I continue to tell everyone, especially the people who continue to tell me, I can't draw. You need to practice. You need to try. You need to get out the pencil and the paper and whatever coloring medium you want and try. And the more you try, the better you'll get. Things that are the most interesting to me, drawing is not on the list. I don't actually enjoy it that much. It's just something that you kind of have to learn to do, and in fact, you really don't have to. If you're going to do abstract art, you don't really need to learn how to draw. The things that interest me are color, the plays between color, shadow and light, and of course, I adore collage. I love to glue paper to other paper or other things. So, this is just, it's practice. It's practice to try to get the blending of the colors, the shape of the things onto some paper and make it look like something, but it's just practice. And that's what I'm telling myself, because I don't really like it. And some people, I think, who make YouTube videos would say, well, I don't like it, I'm not going to show it, but that's not what I'm ever going to do. I'm going to show it because I want you to see that we all practice, that we all struggle with, whether we like something that we make or not. We've all thrown something away. We've all thrown something in the back of the closet. And you need to respect your own abilities and your willingness to try and not throw it away, even though you don't like it. Maybe you don't have to share it. Maybe you don't have to bare your soul to other people, but certainly keep it for yourself. And that's what art journaling is about. That's exactly the purpose of art journaling, not making masterpieces, although sometimes some of it comes out really great and you wish that it wasn't in an art journal because now you want to frame it or you want to scan it or something because it turned out wonderfully and you're so excited. And sometimes it turns out meh and you're just glad it's in the book and you don't have to look at it anymore. So I've got, I started out with white and I'm not sure if that's the way a real pastel artist would do it. I don't know if they start with the lightest color and work to the darkest or if they do it the opposite direction. You know, when you're using different mediums, you sometimes do it in different ways, but I wanted to kind of highlight the areas that I thought were going to be the ones that stood out the most, like the muzzle and the eyes on the cat. Also, there was highlights around its body. Now here I'm putting some Spectrafix on. Spectrafix is a workable fixative for pastels and it's environmentally friendly. It's in a pump spray, but the pump spray got clogged and I haven't been able to get it to clear out. So I just take the one from my water bottle and I screw it on and use it, and then I take it back off, put the other one back on for storage, and I put that in back on my water bottle and squirt it a little bit just because, you know, sometimes you got to work around. That's what I do. So then I went from the lightest color to a yellow and to a darker yellow and to kind of a flesh tone and down to a brown, and in between that I filled in some of the black because the stripes and spots that are on this cat are definitely black or very, very dark, and so I wanted to get those in for proportion and you know, getting them in the right places. And then I went back to the light and went, you know, just back and forth. But I definitely started with the face to start out with because I wanted it to look right. And then actually the thing that most interested me about the picture that I was using for reference is um, the the back of the cat is what shows the most. It's like it's from the back and it's got its head turned over its shoulder. And um, I thought that was interesting to see the way the fur is down its spine and how it's split and kind of duplicates itself on either side of the cat. If you saw it from the cat, you'd only see one pattern. You wouldn't realize the pattern is very similar on the other side because you can't take it and flip it around. Here, cat, let me hold you so that I can flip around and compare. Yeah, that's not going to happen. So I thought that was what was interesting about the picture was the perspective of the cat's back and the pattern not being exactly the same on both sides, but definitely repeating itself on both sides and being very similar with this dark pattern down the spine and then spots on either side that were, I don't know, it was interesting to me. So when I was looking for a reference photo, this was the one I found and thought was most interesting. There was certainly lots of others. This is not the one that the wildlife video camera took. That one was from the side as the cat was walking, and it was very blurry and it wasn't clear. You couldn't really, I mean, you could see what it was, but it was poor quality photograph. It's just for scientific purposes. So now I'm starting to fill out the pattern on the rest of the body, and it seemed to have, well, you could see it's, if it's, let's see, that would be its left foreleg, just a little bit. And then there was kind of some folds of skin. And so part of the pattern would be obscured by where the skin is folding And so I tried to portray that by having a light area, and it kind of had almost like a little stripes. And then on the back spine, it had this dark pattern, and then it had like these spots, like leopard spots. And leopard spots aren't solid black. They are kind of a C shape or sometimes an O shape with color in the center and color around. So I made sure that my leopard spot areas looked something like that. Way back a long time ago when I lived in California and I went to studio makeup school, learning to do theatrical and movie makeup and beauty makeup and stuff like that. I went through this period where I was very fascinated with the Broadway musical Cats and all the makeups, all the theatrical makeups that they had in that movie to portray, to make people look like cats. And that's when I was thinking about what tiger stripes versus leopard spots versus, all the different cats and what, and then of course house cats. You got your gray striped cats, you got your solid black cats, you got your patchwork looking cats. I kind of was into that for a while, and recently Broadway in Tucson, I saw a traveling Broadway show of the musical Cats, which I think is in its, I don't know, I can't remember if it was 25th year or 50th year or something, but it was, it's like they've redone some of it, some of the costumes and the staging, and brought it as a traveling show, and it was fun to see that because I do remember singing all the music from that show and being interested in the makeups and how they designed so many different looking cats. I thought that was interesting. So that's how come I know what leopard spots look like. I painted them on my face quite a few times, actually. So I know that's weird. It's just a weird thing that I did. But then, of course, the cat had a lot of different whiskers on his eyes, on the top of his face, and then down towards his muzzle, to sense in the dark. These are nocturnal animals, so they need a lot of sensory stuff. And I kept messing with the eyes over and over and over and over and over and over, trying to get a luminescent, shiny look. Their eyes are yellow, but in the picture, they looked shiny. And so I'm trying to add in the catch lights and reshape them. And I messed with that a lot, and I still didn't. I still was not satisfied with how it looked, and I finally decided that it's because the muzzle just needed to be pushed up, and that was all there is to it. It should have been a wider, shorter face instead of a long face. So I hope you're enjoying this video. I hope you're enjoying this series. I will put some links to some of the other animal portraits I've done since January, and if you haven't seen them, you can watch those. Of course, remember to give me a thumbs up, and you can leave me a comment or question below. Those things really help my channel grow by helping other people find me. Also, you can share this on Pinterest, and if this is your last video for today, could you please click on to late night news or some other video that has a huge amount of following so that my video doesn't get punished as the one that sent you away from YouTube. Apparently that's a thing. So I'm happy if you change your viewing habits slightly to do that for me. That would be great. If this is your first video, I'm really happy about that because then I get kind of rewarded for that as well. So I added just a few little sprigs of grass at the bottom to kind of balance the composition because it seemed a little bit heavy to the right. And then I blended just a little bit, not much, with my finger. I could blend this whole thing really well with a blending stump or something, but I didn't. I just left it very raw looking. And I gave it another spray with the Spectrafix, which does darken the colors a little bit, in particular the white. I want that white to stand out, and every time I put the Spectrafix on it to seal in all that pastel powder, It makes it darker, which I don't really like that. So once that was all dry, I decided to add in some very bright white highlights with my white Posca pen, which is an acrylic paint pen. So this is the third type of, well, I've already had acrylic on here, acrylic paint. I've had the water-based distress sprays. I've had the pastel powdery sticks, and now some more acrylic paint. So this is definitely mixed media because I'm using a lot of different media, not just using one thing. That's all that mixed media means, people. It means that you used a combination of different mediums on your project to get the look that you wanted. So that is it for me and the May portrait of an ocelot. Thanks. Bye-bye.